Hey everybody, welcome to Hands-On Games, and in today's episode we are talking about Space Empires 4X, a hex encounter game where you're going to be exploring, expanding, exploiting, and exterminating either a AI opponent or friends of yours in a multiplayer game. So typically I do not buy games that are hybrid, that are generally meant for multiplayer but then have solo rules, but this has been getting consistently good reviews on the One Player Guild, on Board Game Geek, a lot of good after action reports on how much fun people have had with it. And I've been kind of in a hex encounter game mood lately, trying to figure out how to make hex encounter games that are meant for two-player work for one player. I'm just feeling in the mood to play that kind of game. So this was an easy choice when it came to adding a new game to my collection recently, especially with all the good comments on Board Game Geek and the fact that the designer worked really hard to incorporate some good solo play scenarios into the game. So in this overview today, that's what I'm going to be showing you, is the setup and overview of how to play a single player campaign or a single player game, while also talking about some of the multiplayer aspects, because I am looking forward to getting this to the table in a multiplayer scenario soon. Just a little bit more of a quick introduction. So back in the late 80s in college, one of my favorite games was Strategic Conquest. We used to play that, my buddies and I, on an old Mac Plus. And then also Spaceward Ho, a couple great Macintosh games back from the late 80s. And what I liked about those games was it gave you the fog of war, so you had to go out and explore, you had to build up your economy, build up your fleets, and then go find the enemy and destroy him. A lot of fun, pretty streamlined, pretty simple, and it worked. Then as the genre moved forward, games got a lot more complicated. The tech trees got a lot more complicated. I'm talking about games like Masters of Orion and Galactic Civilizations. Great games. They kind of lost me though. I've never really been in for that much depth in my PC strategy gaming. So even though I still buy the Civilization games when they come out, the depth usually gets to me eventually, and I stop playing. So usually depth is a good thing. One of the things that you'll hear me talk about liking in Space Empires is the tech tree, and the gameplay is streamlined for accessibility and fun. So I really like that. So yeah, it's a board game equivalent of a game like Masters of Orion or Galactic Gal Civ, and it works. So let me turn the camera around and I'll give you an overview of what it's all about. Okay, so here is the game board for Space Empires. Right now it's set up for a game against the AI, running the Doomsday Machines, basically sending Doomsday Machines at the solo player, attempting to destroy the player's home planet, and if the player survives all the Doomsday Machines, the player wins. So what you can see right now from this view, you'll notice lots of colored zones. First of all, that probably pops out at you first. Those zones are on the board as a setup aid for the various scenarios, multiplayer and solo play scenarios. So for gameplay purposes, they don't serve any purpose. And as you zoom in closer, you'll see that I have some of my fleet showing right there around my home planet. And then there's a number of markers, counters around the home planet representing my home system, the green ones, since I'm playing the green race. Outside of the green markers are white markers. Those represent deep space. So you're going to encounter tons of different things when exploring your home system in deep space. I'll get to those in a second. Also on the board over on the right are some helpers for the economic phase of each turn, the economic phase of each game year, and then finally turns within those years. The way the game works is you're going to take 3 turns of moving your pieces, engaging in any combat with enemy ships, exploring any regions. You'll do that 3 times, and then you'll have the economic phase where you reap the benefits of the infrastructure that you've built up. Right now you can see my home planet's going to give me 20 CPs every turn to spend on either upgrades or building new ships. Now, as for what you can encounter while you're playing the game, I've set up these top 2 rows of deep space to give you an idea of what's out there. You've got supernovas. You've got Lost in Space, which is going to have your ship randomly end up in one of these other spaces around the Lost in Space marker. In a multiplayer game, another opponent gets to decide where your ship ends up. You've got black holes. If you have a ship that ends up on this spot and uncovers this, you're going to have to roll 1d10, and on a roll of 1 to 6, you're fine. Anything else, you get lost in the black hole. You've got asteroids, which will impact calculations when you're doing battle in that region. You've got danger. You don't want to see danger. Danger means your ship is automatically destroyed, and there's lots of these markers that are going to pop up in deep space. Minerals. Minerals are good. You send a mining ship out to grab this, bring it back to a colony or home planet, and you will reap the rewards the next economic turn. The Doomsday Machine, which I'm putting out here initially for this scenario just to know that you can play with this option in the multiplayer and single-player games where a Doomsday Machine may pop up. But in this scenario that I'm playing, it comes out at predefined times at predefined locations. Nebulas work the same as asteroids in that they impact combat sequences in those regions. You can find barren planets. If you have terraforming technology, you'll be able to settle a colony on one of these planets. Warp points to be used in the advanced rules. I haven't played with those yet. And finally, a space wreck. Space wrecks are cool. If you tow those back to your home planet or colony, you will get to roll against the table and possibly get a free technology upgrade. The bad news is if you already have that technology upgrade, the space wreck is wasted. So you'll encounter similar items, including lots more minerals in your home system as you move around the board. But from an overview perspective, that's what you're going to get for the game pieces, except for your actual player pieces, your fleet pieces, which I'll show you next. Okay, so the counters that represent your ships and infrastructure in Space Empires are really easy to use and really easy to read. Let me just step you through the parts of a counter, and then I'll show you all the different kinds. So at the top, it's telling you what kind of ship this is. This happens to be a scout, designated by the SC, and its designation there of number 2 is just a naming mechanism so you can remember which one this is in your fleet. So you'll have SC-1, -2, -3, -4, etc. So you can keep track of it on your sheet that you use to track the ships that you have in the game, your ship technology sheet, and the associated counters. So it's a scout. It's scout number 2. His class is E, which is, go ahead and equate it to initiative. A is better, which means in a battle, ships with an A would shoot first, and E is on the lower end, so obviously the scout is not well equipped for battle and will be firing last in a battle and will likely be destroyed before he even gets a chance to fire. The 3-0, it's simple, attack strength and defense strength. So he would to get a hit on an unmodified roll, it would be a 1, 2, or 3 on a D10. Anything else he misses. The 0 is his defense modifier, which means when he's being attacked, he does not get to modify the roll of the attacker in any way. Again, assume, by the way, that what I'm telling you is at the beginning of the game when you haven't researched any technology. So just to make it easy, the assumption here is that no technology for attack, defense has been researched yet, so it's just a straight 3 for attack, 0 for defense. And the X1 is speaking to the ship's hull size. Hull size has a couple uses. three uses off the top of my head. One, it determines which ships can be built at which shipyards. You have to have enough shipyard strength or numbers to build a certain number of ships, depending on their hull size. Two, a hull size of 1 means it only takes 1 hit for that ship to be destroyed. And 3, and during the economic phase, when you are counting up your maintenance income and you pay your maintenance, the hull size counts against that. So this would be a maintenance of 1 each economic turn to pay for. So that's your scout. And then moving up the ranks, we have a destroyer. I'm not going to read out all the numbers. You can sort of watch as the numbers climb. Then we have our cruiser. We have our battle cruiser. We have our battleship, now getting stronger, bigger hull sizes. And we have our dreadnought. Nice attack strength, good defense, high initiative there with an A, class A, and huge, big hull size. It's going to take 3 hits to take that boy down. Then we have other ships in your fleet. You have your colony ships, which are going to send out to build colonies. We have bases, which are, provide fortifications. You can see the attack strength on there and hull size. So you can only build one of these per hex, but it's a great frontline defense when you need it. You've got mining ships. Miners are going to bring back those minerals that I told you about earlier. So they head out to grab one of those, they put themselves on it, and they move on back home. You have these guys, the raiders. Raiders are cool. I haven't played with them yet, but they can bring along some cloaking if they have cloaking technology, and that's why you see the multiple ratings on there. So I'm looking forward to playing with these guys in a multiplayer scenario at some point. Then you have fighters, which are going along with your carriers. And then finally your minesweepers and mines, which I didn't show you the mines. Well, just know that there's a mines counter in there. And then there's decoys. Decoys are kind of cool, and I need to explain how the game works for you to understand how a decoy counter would be used in the game. You'll notice that on the back of all of these counters that I just showed you, including the decoy, is a generic icon representing that particular race. And so when you're moving these around the board, you do one of two things. You have the counter, and then you also have another counter which is only known to you that represents how many of those ships are represented by this stack. So for example, if I had this minesweeper and I had 4 of them in this particular group, this is how it would look when you're moving around the board. Just like that. So my opponent in a multiplayer game would not know what the ship is or how many there were. So it's a very cool mechanism that I'm looking forward to trying out with some other folks when you're playing the game. So it keeps everything, it keeps the information hidden until there's that combat, and then you reveal what you have under here and combat ensues. Now the way combat works in this game is really easy and really enjoyable. The first thing you're going to do is when 2 groups of ships meet in the single hex, you're going to take them off the board and put them off to the side. You're going to go ahead and put one of these markers on the hex on the board to represent where the battle is taking place. And so you have the combatants now laid out on the table. I believe future expansions to this game included special mats to put this on to make it easier, and I think there's also some fan add-ons that you can print out to do this, but it's really not necessary, and it's pretty easy to figure it out. Basically, you're going to read battles from left to right. You're going to do it from A down to E. So blue has this battleship that's an A. He's going to get to fire first. Then green has a couple battle cruisers that are B. They're going to go second. Then they have a cruiser who's a C who's going to go third. And then finally, if they're still around, blue's destroyers at a class D will get a chance to fire as well. And now the way the fighting works is you have to go through at least 1 round of fighting until anybody can decide to retreat. So that's one rule. The second rule is, and it's not going to apply here because both fleets are of equal size, but if one fleet is bigger, the player with the bigger fleet can choose to screen one or more up to the amount that he's over the other player of his counters. So if, for example, I had another carrier on the blue side, cruiser on the blue side, he would have one more counter, then green, so he could choose to take one of his destroyers out of the battle and basically screen that ship. And that ship would have a chance to enter the battle after each round, or you could change around the order of who's screened as long as you still have a majority of ships. So that's one tactical tidbit about the battles. The second, like I mentioned, there is retreating allowed, but only after everybody gets a chance to fire. Then and only then, when it's the ship's turn in the combat sequence again, can they choose to retreat or not. So the way the battle works is a simple roll of a d10. The game comes with 4 of these, simple d10s, and you're going to roll once for each shot. It's a simple combat system, no need for extra rolls, more than 1 die. It's really easy. So now, assuming no technology upgrades, I'll get to technology upgrades in a second, but assuming no technology upgrades, this battleship's going to fire first, and he gets to choose, who he's going to fire at. So if he picks this cruiser over here, cruiser has a defense rating of 1. He has a attack rating of 5, so it's a simple 5 minus 1. So on a roll of a d10, a 2 would be a hit, and anything higher, like an 8 or a 10, obviously is a miss. And the game gives you damage counters. The cruiser has a hull rating of 2, so he could take 1 bit of damage with that first roll, say that first roll of 2. So that would be his firing turn. Now you move from left to right. So now green, that just took a hit to their cruiser, gets a chance to fire with their battle cruisers. So he's going to take 2 shots with this battle cruiser, and maybe he's going to try to take out these destroyers before they even get a chance to fire. So it's 5, and these destroyers have no defensive capabilities, so it's a straight 5. So 1 to 5 would be a hit. So that first one rolls a 2 again, that's 1 damage on here. And the next cruiser rolls, he rolls a 3, say. He gets another hit, that's 2, so back that up. You guys probably caught that. So that first hit on the destroyer knocked it out of the game because hull size of 1, sorry if you can't see that, hull size of 1, he's destroyed. The second battle cruiser is going to shoot at this destroyer, rolls a 3, again, he's destroyed. So before these destroyers even had a chance to fire 1 shot, because of their class of D, that low initiative, they didn't even get a chance to fire, and they are done. And you get to the cruiser, the fact that he has damage of 1 does not impact his ability to attack at all, does not degrade his performance. So he's got a 4. The battleship now has a defense of 2. So it's going to be unlikely. It's going to be on a roll of 1 or a 2 to get a hit, and he rolls a 10. So he does not get a hit. So that's the end of 1 round of fighting in this combat sequence. If nobody decides to retreat, you keep playing until one side's forces are wiped out. So he could choose, now that it's his turn and we've gone through 1 sequence of fighting, he could choose to retreat his battleship, or he could fight on. So that's an overview of battle in Space Empires. Okay, so those of you familiar with Space Empires and do not own it yet have probably heard there's some amount of bookkeeping in the game, and yes, that's true. Maybe this is one of the advantages of playing a PC version of one of these games has over a board game version, but it's really not that bad and doesn't bother me at all, even playing solo. So what you have to do is you have this 2-sided sheet. On this first side is your ship technology sheet, which you're going to use to track the attributes of the ships that you have in play on the board. So you can see right here, I've got cruiser number 1, his attack level is 2, his defense level is 2, his tactics level is 0, and his move technology level is a 2. You don't have to erase previous technology levels after you discover them or advance to them, because you're never going to go backwards. So that's So that's one thing to note. We've talked about attack improvements, we've talked about defense improvements, and what I haven't really mentioned is the battle system is really easy. Before, if you had an attack with that battleship whose attack was 5 with no attack modifier, it'd be 5. When you research level 1 attack technology, it just means he's now a 6. And if you advance to level 2, you add 2 to his 5, and he's now a 7. It's really simple to implement technology improvements, and that's really nice about this game. Same thing with defense, that's how you improve. One thing to note, for both attack and defense, you cannot improve a ship's attack or defensive ratings above their hull size. So that's why you see these ships that have a smaller hull can't get an upgrade to 3 in terms of attack or defense. But that's just an easy rule that you'll learn quickly. Have not talked about tactics. Tactics comes into play when you have 2 ships that are both of the same class, and you have to decide who fires first. Whoever has the highest tactics will fire first. So tactics is going to be very important in a longer multiplayer game to advance. For when you've got ships of the same class clashing with each other, you want to be the one to fire first. So that's a good technology to spend your CPs on. And then finally, movement technology. The higher you move your ship up the movement ranking, the more hexes they're going to be able to move in a particular turn. And there's a guide on the back of the user manual that explains movement rules per tech level. Again, it's easy to implement. And in the advanced rules of the game, you're going to have other technologies like point defense, scanners, and exploration. You're going to possibly be using fighters, and there's your cloaking and minesweeper technology down there that I was talking about with raiders and the minesweepers. So this is how you're going to keep track of what ships have what tech. Now, in the base rules of the game, it's pretty logical. It says that when you build a ship, the ship is built with your latest tech, and after you research new technology, those ships still have the old tech, while new ships built after that technology is researched will gain the new technology. However, there is a rule in the game that allows you to have instant upgrades, which I think if I play this game the first time, if I can talk my sons into playing with it or my buddy Brian to play it, we'll probably play it by that rule. I think it'll just make the bookkeeping even that much more smoother. And when you think about it, when one turn in this game represents months of time, as the rules state, just go with the fact that maybe it was enough time for the information to make it out to your advanced fleets and for the implementations to be made. So it's not that far-fetched. Okay, so that's how you keep track of your ships. Now, it can get a little bit more, it looks a little bit messy on this side, but I wanted to show you an actual sheet that I used. So you could see how you take care of your production and your economy. It's not bad at all. First of all, down here, here's your tech tree. It's very, very easy to use. You see it has your starting values for ship size, attack, defense, tactics, and movement, shipyards, terraforming, exploration. As you move up the tech tree, you just circle where you are. The number in parentheses is simply the cost to upgrade to that tech. So very easy. I have not used the table over here. It's for the advanced rules, which I haven't played with yet. And then finally, at each economic phase, you're going to go through the sequence that is also explained on the board as a quick reference, but you can also just move down the sheet as well. Basically, you're going to mark down how many CPs you're getting from your colonies, how many minerals your mining ships brought back, and if you're doing the merchant ship pipeline, which I also didn't explain, another advanced rule, you might get CPs from that, and then you have your subtotal. So 25 in this particular case. Then you subtract maintenance. In this case, I had 3 scout ships, so that would be 3 because they're a whole size 1. And it leaves me with 22 points to spend. I spent 10 on a technology. I spent 6 to get a new scout, and that left 6 left over. And I simply apply that to my next turn, and they get carried over to the next turn. And that's it for the economy. It is really streamlined, straightforward, and I found it easy to use. Okay, so that's an overview of the components and the gameplay mechanics. Let me show you what a couple turns look like when you're starting out a solo play game. What we were showing here right now is my home planet of Chulak. I've chosen to play the green race in the game to give the non-Terrans some love. And you start out with a complement of 3 scouting ships, 3 scouts, a mining ship, 3 colony ships, and your 4 shipyards for building new ships during the economic phase. And it's a 4X game, so you have to start with exploration. So a good strategy is because you know that your home system is not fraught with too much peril. It can be risky to send colony ships out there with the scouts in the event there's black holes, but there's not as much danger as deep space, so you can choose to send the colony ships with the scouts, but I'm not going to do that, so I'm just going to say 1 scout moves here, a 2nd scout will go here, and a 3rd scout will go here. And again, we're in our first turn. And that's pretty much all I can do in this first turn, unless I wanted to send out a miner in a random direction, but who knows where the ore is gonna, the minerals are gonna end up, so he'll stay home for now. And then after movement of a turn, you move into combat. We have no combat that's occurring, so we move into exploration at the end of turn 1. So exploration is, I found a habitable planet here, Takara, 1 hex away, so that's excellent. I found some minerals in this hex and some more minerals here. So that's a really good first turn. I found a new place to colonize and some minerals to bring back with my miner. So that's the end of the first turn, and you're going to go ahead and move the counter to number 2 on the turn track over here. So now we've moved it to number 2. And we go ahead and continue with our second turn. Now, some people go ahead and move their counters sideways after a movement. I pretty much just always go left to right to make sure that I don't move someone twice or forget to move someone. So shipyards never move. You're gonna keep those back there. They cannot move around. I'm gonna go ahead and start with my scout and move him 1 to the left. I'm gonna move my mining ship up here and to be able to grab this mineral. And then I'm gonna send 1 colony ship over to Dakara here to start colonizing. And finally, these last 2 scouts, I'll send 1 more to the right and 1 more up here. So that's it for the movement phase. Now we move into combat. There is no combat to be resolved, and there won't be for quite some time. Whether it's a multiplayer game or a solo game, you're going to spend the beginning of the game exploring, finding minerals, building up your economy, and finding planets to colonize. It's again, that's the way that 4X games work. It allows you to make there's going to be some randomness to the stuff you find out in space, and you have to make different decisions each game. There is some amount of randomness to it. What I didn't mention, and I'll do it now, is the amount of counters for deep space are more than you need to place on the board. So deep space is going to change from game to game, what you find out there, because there's going to be a lot of counters left unused. For your home system, however, it will be the same set of tokens each time. Okay, so no combat, so we move on to exploration. We'll start with this scout. He finds some more minerals. We go to this scout. He's found an asteroid cluster, asteroid belt, and then finally over here we found a black hole. Okay, now if you remember what I said about black holes, immediately this scout has to roll a d10. If he rolls a 1 to 6, he survived the encounter with the black hole and can move away here just fine. However, if he rolls a 7, 8, 9, or 10, the ship is lost for good. And I rolled a 7. So that scout has been destroyed. I'm now down to 2 scouts because of this black hole, and it stays on the board. Now we move the colony ship here. He's going to stay here until the economic phase, so he's just going to sit here while he builds his colony. These 2 other colony ships are going to stay at home for now, and this miner on turn 3 now is going to go ahead and move back home. But let's go left to right like I said, so this scout will move up here. Miner moves one space back to the home planet. My remaining scout will move over here and check out this spot. No combat, so we do exploration. We found more asteroids, and we found a nebula. So I haven't talked about what the effects of asteroids and nebula are yet, so let me do that now. Again, as I referred to earlier, it comes into play during battles in that particular hex. So if you're in a position where you're going to have a battle in that hex, and you're in an asteroid system, it negates both participants' attack technology. In addition, the class of all ships is considered to be E. So if you're lagging in attack tech, and maybe your ships aren't as strong or don't have as high classes, you're going to want to meet your foe in an asteroid belt for a little bit of a tactical advantage. As for nebulas, it's similar, but instead of attack technology being negated, it's defensive technology being negated. So if you're behind in defense tech, you might want to think about trying to engage your opponent in a nebula. And again, the class of all ships is considered an E. So in both asteroids and nebula, it's also very good to have higher tactics technology. That is going to allow you to have a distinct advantage in those locations. So we're done with our exploration phase, and we now are done with the first 3 turns in the first economic phase. So at this point, you're going to consult your sheet, and you're going to start doing all the things we talked about before, which is add up the amount of CPs from your colonies. Right now, it's only 20. So you take that 20. You include any minerals that you brought back with your miners. We have, so that's 5. So we have 25. And you then subtract maintenance costs. Now, the good news is our maintenance cost has gone down because we lost a scout. The bad news is we lost a scout. So 25 minus the 2 scouts is we're going to have 23 CPs to spend on technology or new ships during the first economic phase. And then finally, after you do all those things, you're going to start growing colonies that you may have started during that previous turn. And in this case, we have this one colony over here. When you flip the counter over, it says colony 5. Unfortunately, you don't get to start at that size. You have to start at 1. So they include these other counters in the game. So for the next economic phase, this colony is going to be worth 1 CP. At the end of the next economic phase after that, it'll be worth 3, and then finally it will be worth 5. And this is a small, what I didn't mention is this is a small one-player map. And I've been averaging about 5 or 6 colonies per single-player game. I imagine in bigger games you're going to have more. Obviously, especially since you could have the terraforming technology and access some of the barren planets in the outer reaches. Okay, so that's a hands-on look at the gameplay and mechanics of Space Empires 4X. Explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. Like I said in the opening, I really enjoy games like this that have a random setup each time. You have to fight your way through the fog of war, build up an economy, build up your ships, and then go to town on the enemy. So it's a lot of fun. The components are great. Gave me a chance to do some counter clipping with my new Oregon Laminations 2mm plastic corner cutter. I think it's made for credit cards or cards like that, but it works great on these counters. The rule set, super easy. The rule book, extremely well written. Scenario guide, also well written. So kudos to the team that wrote these books. I forgot to mention, the designer is Jim Crone. The publisher is GMT Games, so go to your favorite local game store for a copy of the game if you're interested, or go to the GMT website, GMT Games website. So components great. Again, great manual. Can't say it enough. Thank you. Made it really easy to learn. And it's got a pretty active user community on Board Game Geek. A lot of add-ons and files you can download for this game. I really liked the exploration. I liked the tech tree advancement. I love the simplicity of it and how easy it is to implement. I really like the combat. Again, I prefer simple over advanced. This is the kind of combat I'd prefer to have versus the kind of calculations you have to do in a game like Mage Knight, for example. And as I said before, I am really looking forward to playing this multiplayer. I think this game has a lot going for it. The way that you hide your fleets, that you hide not only what ships you have in your fleets with the generic image, but as well as how many ships you have as you move around the board, is going to be a lot of fun to play with. Hopefully, I've got a friend here in town, Brian, who hopefully will watch this video and want to play this game with me. And I've also got my two sons who are more into video games. Maybe I can get to the table with them. The bookkeeping, it isn't that bad. I don't, so whatever you've heard, taking care of this stuff with a sheet of paper in front of you isn't that bad. The only odd thing about this is the only game I know where you could really mess up, make some calculation errors, and your opponent pays the price for that. You could accidentally, mark that your ships have a tech that you haven't paid for, or do the math wrong, even though it's simple math, and you're going to give a boost to your economy maybe without even noticing it, and buy more ships. And I guess the rules state that at the end of the game you can look at your opponent's production sheet, but yeah, it's one of those things where all this hidden information, you just have to trust that your opponent is playing fair and square. But in the solo play game, you don't have to worry about that. For you solo players out there, it's a good game. The solo scenarios are fun. Granted, I've only read the rules for the alien scenario, which I've read is deeper and better and more rewarding. I've only played the Doomsday Machine scenario a few times. So take my thoughts with a grain of salt. It's good. I think I'm probably going to wait until I can play this multiplayer before I play many more games of it. For solo gaming, I prefer sports games first and foremost. And then I prefer games like States of Siege, like Dawn of the Zeds, sorry Victory Point Games. So I prefer games from the States of Siege series like Dawn of the Zeds, in magnificent style, games like that. And not to take anything away from the solo play in this game, but that's just what I gravitate towards. But that said, so I'm looking forward to it. Multiplayer plays a good game. Solitaire. If you have any questions about the gameplay, the components, the tech tree, anything, let me know. Leave me a comment. If you found this video over on Board Game Geek and you're checking out a video on my channel for the first time, take a look at the videos that I'm making. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel. Love to have you along for more videos. Go ahead and like this video if you enjoyed it. That always helps. And I think that's it for this episode. So hope you guys have a great week and get in some gaming, and I will talk to you soon.